The galaxy was endless and cold, full of bright stars and silent darkness. In this wide ocean of space, a small human shuttle drifted like a broken toy. Its metal body was cracked, and smoke floated out of its engines. The ship had traveled too far, maybe chased, maybe lost, no one knew. But now, it was falling toward a strange world. The planet below glowed with violet clouds and silver oceans, a place unknown to humans. A place hidden from every map. Inside the shuttle, a man lay still. His name was Daniel, a simple human soldier, but now he was the only survivor of his crew. He woke with pain in his chest and fire in his lungs as alarms screamed around him. The shuttle shook hard, throwing him against the seat. His head spun, and for a moment he thought he was dreaming. But then he looked through the cracked window, and the vision burned into his mind-sharp mountains, forests glowing with strange blue light, and skies where 3 moons floated together like silent watchers. The shuttle crashed into the alien forest with a thunderous roar. Trees exploded into fire and smoke as metal tore apart. When silence finally returned, Daniel pulled himself out of the broken hatch, his face covered in dirt and blood. His hands shook, but his eyes were sharp. He was alive. He was human. And now, he was alone on a world that was not his own. The forest around him was beautiful, but dangerous. The ground was soft and glowing, as if the soil itself carried light. Strange flowers opened their petals even at night, shining like lanterns. From the shadows came whispers, low growls, and the rustle of unseen creatures. Daniel's heart beat fast, but he forced himself to stand tall. He was trained to face danger. He was not going to die here. Then he saw them. Shapes moved between the glowing trees, tall and powerful. They walked like hunters, silent and smooth. Their armor reflected the moonlight, sharp edges glowing with alien designs. Their faces were fierce, with eyes that burned in colors Daniel had never seen before: gold, violet, and crimson. They were all women, strong and unyielding, their hair braided with silver threads, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Daniel froze, realizing he had just met the guardians of this strange world. The women surrounded him in a circle, their weapons pointed at his chest. He could feel the heat from their blades, could hear the hum of energy that promised death in one strike. One of them stepped forward, taller than the rest, her eyes sharp like a hawk. She looked at him as if he was both amusing and dangerous, a strange creature that should not exist here. "This is a human," one of them whispered. Her voice filled with disbelief. The tall leader tilted her head, studying him. "Fragile, weak, yet he is not afraid." Daniel stood straight, his body trembling but his face calm. He knew fear would only make him look like prey. He stared back at them, his eyes steady, his voice quiet. "I don't know where I am, but I will not bow." For a moment, silence filled the forest. The alien girls looked at each other, their expressions unreadable. They had seen many creatures in the galaxy: monsters, machines, beasts, but a human here in their sacred land was something new. And the way he spoke, the way he stood, it was not like the weak animals they had crushed before. The leader finally lowered her blade, just a little, and her lips curved into a strange smile. "Interesting," she said softly. "This human does not tremble." The others laughed, sharp and cold, but there was respect in their eyes. Daniel felt the weight of their stares like fire pressing into his skin. He knew he had only seconds to prove himself, or they would kill him where he stood. The leader turned away and raised her hand. "Take him," she commanded. "If he is weak, he dies. If he is strong, perhaps he belongs here." 2 warriors stepped forward, their weapons ready. Daniel's heart pounded, but he clenched his fists. He did not know what fate awaited him, but one thing was clear: his journey was only beginning. In this galaxy of fierce girls, A single human had arrived, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The night was long, and Daniel barely slept. The alien warriors had dragged him through the glowing forest, their weapons always close to his back. They spoke in low voices, their words sharp and unfamiliar. He could not understand their language, but he could feel their eyes on him. Some looked at him with laughter, some with curiosity, and some with the hunger of predators watching prey. When they finally reached their camp, he saw a fortress made from black stone and silver towers, guarded by fire that never burned out. Strange banners waved above, marked with symbols he did not know. Inside the camp, dozens of alien girls trained with deadly skill. Their swords cut through the air with blinding speed. Their arrows glowed with light and pierced stone walls. Their shouts echoed like thunder. Daniel watched silently as he was pushed forward into the center of their arena. His hands tied with ropes that glowed and burned against his skin. He felt small among them, like a mouse standing in a nest of hawks. The leader of the warriors stepped onto the platform. Her armor shone under the moons, and her golden eyes never left him. A human, she declared in a voice both sharp and calm. Lost, broken, weak. She circled him slowly, the crowd of warriors laughing behind her. But still, he does not bow. We will test him. The warriors cheered, their voices shaking the ground. Daniel's stomach tightened. A test. He knew what that meant. These were not people who played games. This would be a fight, a trial, maybe even an execution. His ropes were cut, and 2 guards shoved him forward. A weapon was thrown at his feet, a staff, heavy and plain, nothing compared to their glowing swords and spears. Daniel picked it up, feeling the rough wood under his hands. He took a deep breath. He had survived battles before, but never like this. This was not just survival. This was a judgment. The first warrior stepped forward, tall and fast. Her blade hummed with deadly energy as she charged at him. Daniel moved quickly, rolling aside as the weapon struck the ground, sparks flying. The crowd shouted in surprise. No human should have been able to dodge so fast. He swung his staff at her legs, and she stumbled, falling into the dust. Gasps and laughter filled the arena. Another came at him, then another. He blocked one strike, ducked under another, and used the staff to push one warrior into the other. He was not stronger, not faster, but he was clever. He fought like a survivor, using every small mistake, every opening. His body burned with pain. His lungs screamed for air, but his mind was sharp. He remembered every lesson from war. Never fight their way, always fight your way. The warriors grew angrier. Their strikes became harder, faster, crueler. Daniel was cut across the arm, blood dripping onto the dust. He fell once, twice, but always rose again. His staff cracked, splinters flying, but he held it firm. Each time they thought he would fall, he surprised them. Each time they tried to crush him, he turned their power against them. The leader watched with narrow eyes. She had expected a weak creature to die quickly, but instead she saw something else. She saw a human who refused to give up. It's a man who fought with more than strength, he fought with will. Finally, she raised her hand, and the fight stopped. The warriors stepped back, breathing hard, their faces twisted with frustration and respect. Daniel stood in the center, his chest heaving, his clothes torn, his blood staining the ground. But his eyes were steady, sharp as fire. The leader walked toward him slowly. She studied his wounds, his broken staff, the defiance in his stance. Then, without warning, she swung her blade at his face. The crowd gasped, but Daniel did not flinch. He stood still, looking into her golden eyes, ready for death. The blade stopped an inch from his skin. Silence filled the arena. The leader smiled. "This human," she said softly, her voice carrying through the camp, "does not kneel. He does not break. He fights as if death is his friend. The warriors murmured, their voices rising like thunder. Some nodded with approval, others clenched their fists with anger. The leader lifted her blade high, then lowered it. "He will live," she declared, "but he is not free. He is ours until he proves where he belongs." The crowd roared, their voices shaking the night. Some shouted in challenge, others in respect. Daniel stood in silence, his body weak, but his spirit burning. He did not know what they would do next, but he knew one thing: he had passed their first test, and in their fierce eyes he saw something dangerous. Not just hate, not just curiosity, but the beginning of something else. The beginning of belief. The night after the test, the alien camp was alive with firelight and whispers. Sparks rose into the violet sky as warriors sharpened their blades and told stories in their strange tongue. Daniel sat apart, his back against a cold stone wall, his arm wrapped in cloth where the blade had cut him. His body ached, but his mind stayed alert. He had survived, and that survival had earned him something more dangerous than death attention. The leader of the warriors, the tall woman with golden eyes, approached him. The others fell silent as she walked, her steps measured, her presence heavy like a storm. She stopped before him, looking down with a face that held no smile, no pity, only curiosity. "You do not break," she said in halting words, her accent sharp, her voice low. "You are human." Daniel lifted his head, surprised that she spoke his language, even if roughly. "Yes," he answered simply. Her eyes narrowed as if she tasted the word. Then she gestured, and two guards pulled him to his feet. "Come," she ordered. "You must see." They led him through the fortress, past halls of black stone and silver carvings. The walls glowed faintly, like veins carrying light. Strange banners hung, marked with sigils of stars and blades. He could feel the weight of history pressing in the air, as if every stone carried memories of old wars. Finally, they entered a great chamber. At its center burned a fire unlike any Daniel had ever seen, blue flames rising from no wood, no fuel, only pure energy. Around it stood tall figures, more warriors, their eyes reflecting the strange light. Above them hung a great map, drawn not on paper but in the air itself. Stars glowed, planets shimmered. Galaxies spun slowly like jewels suspended in the dark. Daniel stared, breath caught in his chest. It was the galaxy, alive, moving, endless. The leader spoke again, her voice like steel. "This is our charge. We are the shield maidens of the Veil. We guard this sector of stars. We fight the enemies that crawl from the dark between worlds. And we never fail." Her words echoed, and the warriors struck their weapons against the floor in thunderous rhythm. Daniel felt the sound in his bones. She turned back to him. But now, a new enemy rises. One we cannot fight with blade alone. Her hand reached toward the great map. A section of stars flickered, then went dark, as if swallowed. The warriors grew silent. Daniel watched in awe as the darkness spread like ink across the light. "The void swarm," she said, her voice dropping lower. "They come from nothing. Endless, mindless, hungry. They devour worlds. They consume fleets. They are not beasts. They are the end." The map showed entire systems vanishing into blackness. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had seen war, he had seen machines and monsters, but this was destruction without purpose, without reason. The leader's golden eyes turned back to him. "You arrive when the swarm rises. Perhaps chance, perhaps fate." Daniel shook his head. "I crashed here. I didn't choose this." Her gaze sharpened. "No one chooses. The galaxy chooses." The words cut deep, but before Daniel could answer, another warrior stepped forward. She was younger, her hair braided with silver, her voice hot with anger. "He is nothing. A fragile man of earth. How can such a creature stand with us against the swarm?" Others nodded, their faces cold. But a few looked at Daniel with something different, not belief, but question. Daniel tightened his grip on the broken staff they had allowed him to keep. His voice was quiet, but steady. "I may not have your strength, but I know how to fight battles that cannot be won. I've done it before." The hall went still. The leader studied him, her lips curving into the ghost of a smile. "Good, then you will learn. You will train. You will bleed with us. And if you live, you will stand." The warriors struck their weapons again, the sound like thunder. Daniel's heart pounded. He had survived the test, but now he saw the truth. This was not just about earning their respect. This was about something far greater. A war that spanned stars. A war against an enemy that devoured everything, as the blue fire flickered and the map of galaxies shimmered. Daniel felt a strange pull in his chest. He had fallen into this place by accident. But now he understood his crash was no accident at all. And in the silence that followed, one thought burned in his mind: if the fiercest warriors in the galaxy could fall, then maybe, just maybe, a human would have to rise. The days that followed were hard. Daniel was no longer a prisoner, but he was not free either. The Shield Maidens treated him as both guest and test subject, watching his every move, waiting for him to fail. He was given food, a place to sleep, and a place to train. But every kindness carried sharp edges. They wanted to see if a human could survive in their world, or if he would break like weak metal under heat. Among them, one warrior was always near. Her name was Kayla. She was not the leader, but her presence carried weight. Her eyes were silver like a blade under moonlight, and her movements were quick, sharp, and precise. She was younger than the golden-eyed leader, but her voice carried fire. At first, she spoke to Daniel only in commands. "Move faster, do not drop your weapon. Stand tall." She was strict, almost cruel. But she never looked away from him, never left him behind. Training was merciless. Daniel fought against weapons heavier than he could lift, sparred against warriors faster than his eyes could follow, and ran until his lungs burned. Every mistake earned laughter from the others. Every fall brought pain. But Kayla was different. She never laughed. Instead, she forced him to stand up again. When he bled, she handed him a cloth. When he collapsed, she pulled him to his feet. "You are too slow," she said one morning, striking his staff aside with a single twist of her wrist. "Your arms are weak." Daniel wiped sweat from his eyes. "Then teach me to be faster." For the first time, Kayla paused. Her silver eyes studied him, and something softened for just a moment. Then she raised her blade again. Again she commanded. Day after day, Daniel learned. He could not match their strength, but he discovered other ways. He ducked low when they swung high. He struck quick when they expected slow. He used feints, tricks, and stubborn will. Slowly, painfully, he began to last longer in the arena. The warriors noticed. Some grew annoyed, others amused. But Kayla's eyes sharpened with each session. One night, after hours of training, Daniel sat on the edge of the camp, looking at the violet sky. 3 moons shone above, casting strange shadows on the ground. Kayla approached silently, her steps like whispers. She sat across from him, placing her sword beside her. For a long time, neither spoke. The fire crackled between them. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "Why do you help me?" Kayla tilted her head, her silver hair catching the firelight. "Help," she echoed. "I break you so you do not die too quickly." Daniel smiled faintly. "That's one way of putting it." Her eyes softened again, just slightly. "You are not like others." Most creatures we fight scream. They beg. You do not. You stand. Even when you should fall. He looked at her carefully. And what do you think that means? Kayla was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "It means you may be worth something. Not yet, but maybe." The words carried weight, and Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was not friendship yet, not trust, but it was the start of something. Over time, their bond grew in small ways. When Daniel struggled, Kayla offered advice. When she fought, he studied her moves, learning not just strength, but rhythm, patience, and timing. She began to test him differently, less like prey, more like a student. And when others mocked him, she silenced them with a single glance. One evening, during a patrol outside the camp, Daniel and Kayla were attacked by a beast unlike anything he had seen. It was massive, with scales like metal and jaws wide enough to crush stone. It struck fast, knocking Daniel aside. Kayla leapt forward, her blade flashing. But even she struggled against the creature's size. Daniel, bleeding and dazed, grabbed a broken branch from the ground. He shouted, drawing the beast's eyes. At that moment, Kayla struck true, driving her blade through its throat. The monster fell with a shuddering roar. Breathing hard, Kayla looked at him, her silver eyes burning. "Fool," she whispered. "You almost died." Daniel grinned through the blood on his face. "But you killed it, because I distracted it." Her lips curved into the smallest smile, the first he had ever seen. "Perhaps," she admitted. From that night, something changed. Kayla no longer saw him as only fragile. She began to see him as a partner, even if small, even if weak. The other warriors noticed the shift, whispering about the bond forming between human and shield maiden. Some were jealous, some angry, some curious. But none could deny that Daniel was becoming more than they expected. And as the 3 moons rose high above, Kayla told him quietly, "The swarm is coming soon. If you wish to live, you must be ready. And if you wish to stand with us, you must be more than human." Her words echoed in the night, heavy and sharp. Daniel looked at her, his spirit burning stronger than ever. He did not know what fate awaited him, but he knew this: he would not face it alone. The Shield Maiden's fortress never slept. Even at night, the clang of steel and the hum of energy blades echoed through the stone halls. Fires burned high, banners swayed in the wind, and warriors moved like shadows, always ready for war. Daniel had grown used to the rhythm of this place. He trained, he learned, and, with Kayla at his side, he began to feel he had earned a place among them. Not fully accepted, not yet trusted by all, but no longer just the weak stranger who fell from the sky. But peace never lasted long. One evening, the leader with golden eyes summoned the Shield Maidens to the Great Hall. The galaxy map shimmered above them, stars flickering like fragile flames. The room felt heavier than before. A line of red light spread across one side of the map, and Daniel recognized it immediately. Movement. Ships, an army. "The swarm is near," the leader said, her voice sharp as a blade. "But worse, they are not alone. Another faction has chosen this moment to strike." The warriors murmured in anger. Daniel leaned closer, watching the map. A rival faction, human-sized but alien, appeared at the edge of the Shield Maiden's territory. Their ships were sleek and black, their banners marked with jagged crimson. They were called the Drawl, Kayla whispered to him, enemies who had fought the Shield Maidens for centuries. Daniel frowned. Why would they attack now, with the swarm so close? Kayla's silver eyes narrowed. Because cowards strike when others are weak. The fortress went on high alert. Scouts rode out into the glowing forests. Towers lit brighter, and every warrior sharpened her blade. Daniel helped where he could, building barricades, carrying supplies, learning to fit into their war machine. For the first time, he felt the strange unity of their world dozens of fierce warriors moving as one. Their strength like a living storm. But storms can hide shadows. Late that night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He walked the fortress walls, the cool air brushing against his skin. The moons hung high above, bathing the camp in pale light. Then he heard it whispers, low and hurried. He moved closer, careful, silent. 2 warriors stood near the gate, speaking quickly in a tongue Daniel barely understood. But he caught one word, repeated twice, drawl. His heart tightened. He stepped into the shadows, watching. The warriors' eyes flickered nervously as they handed something over a small device, glowing faintly red. A communicator. A signal. Daniel's chest went cold. Betrayal, someone. Inside the fortress was giving information to the drawl. He gripped the stone wall, forcing himself not to move too soon. The device blinked once, then vanished into the traitor's cloak. The 2 warriors parted, one heading deeper into the fortress, the other slipping out into the forest. He waited until silence returned, then hurried back to Kella's quarters. She was awake, polishing her blade. When she saw his face, her silver eyes sharpened. "What is it?" she asked. Daniel told her everything, every word, every movement, every blink of the device. Kella's jaw tightened, her hands gripping her sword so hard the metal groaned. "You are certain?" she demanded. "Yes," Daniel said firmly. "One of them is feeding the drawl information. If we don't act, the fortress will fall before the swarm even arrives." Kayla was silent, her mind racing. Then she stood, her voice low. "We cannot tell all. Not yet. If the traitor hears, they will run. We must find proof. And then?" Her eyes glinted like steel. "Then we cut them down." The next day was filled with tension. Warriors trained as usual, but Daniel could feel the unease in the air. He watched every face, every step, wondering who among them carried betrayal in her heart. Kayla stayed close, her hand never far from her blade. That night, the answer came in fire. The drawl attacked suddenly, their black ships descending from the sky like falling knives. Explosions shook the fortress walls, towers cracked, and fire rained from above. The shield maidens roared into battle, their voices shaking the air. Daniel fought beside them, staff in hand, striking where he could, dodging fire and steel. But as chaos raged, Daniel saw Hertha, same warrior from the gate, slipping through the smoke with the red glowing device in her hand. She was guiding the drawl, sending signals that led their strikes straight into the heart of the fortress. "Kayla!" Daniel shouted, pointing. Kella's eyes blazed silver. She sprinted after the traitor, Daniel close behind. They chased her through burning halls, past collapsing walls, till finally she turned, weapon drawn, eyes full of fury. "You don't belong here." The traitor spat at Daniel. "You are the weakness that will break us." Daniel raised his staff. "No, the weakness is you." The battle that followed was fast and brutal. Steel against wood, speed against will. Kayla struck with deadly grace, forcing the traitor back. Daniel moved when he saw the opening, swinging his staff hard. The device flew from the traitor's hand, shattering against the stone. Sparks and fire burst into the air. The traitor screamed and lunged, but Kella's blade found her chest. The warrior gasped, silver blood spilling, and fell into the dust. Silence followed, broken only by the roar of battle outside. Kayla stood tall, her sword dripping, her breath heavy. She looked at Daniel, and for the first time, her voice carried something like pride. "You saw. You acted. Without you, we would be dead." But Daniel only looked at the broken device, sparks fading into darkness. His chest tightened because he knew the truth. If one of the shield maidens could betray her sisters, then the fortress was not as strong as it seemed. And beyond the smoke, the void swarm still waited. The fortress smelled of smoke and blood. The betrayal had been crushed, but its wound still lingered. The traitor's fire had burned deep into the walls, and the Droll attack had left scars across the Shield Maiden's stronghold. Yet, even as the fires cooled, a greater shadow stretched across the galaxy map above the war hall. The Void Swarm was here. It began as a whisper, a low hum in the distance, like 1,000 wings beating at once. Then the skies darkened, not with clouds, but with countless shapes moving together like a tide. Daniel stood on the walls and felt his chest tighten. He had seen armies before. He had seen fleets, but nothing like this. The swarm was endless living ships, twisted monsters, and shapes too alien to name. They moved as one, hungering for light itself. The Shield Maidens gathered, their armor shining under the moons, their weapons humming with power. Their leader stood tall at the front, her golden eyes fierce. Beside her was Kayla, silver eyes sharp as blades. Together, they looked like storms waiting to break. "This is not a fight for glory," the leader said, her voice carrying over the fortress. "This is survival. This is the line that will not break. If we fall here, the stars will follow." The warriors struck their weapons against the ground in thunderous rhythm. The sound shook Daniel's bones. He gripped his staff tighter, its wood now reinforced with metal scraps he had forged himself. He was no shield maiden, no warrior of legend. But he had chosen to stand here. When the first wave came, the sky split apart. The creatures fell like rain claws, teeth, and fire. The ground shook under their impact, and the fortress walls groaned. The shield maidens roared, their arrows slicing through the sky, their blades carving fire through the air. The battle began with a sound that could tear the galaxy apart. Daniel fought at Kella's side. He moved with speed, striking low while she struck high, distracting where she destroyed. Again and again, he felt claws tear past his skin, but he refused to fall. The staff cracked against skulls, jabbed into throats, swept legs from under monsters that towered over him. Kella's blade flashed like lightning, her movements deadly and precise. Together, they were not perfect, but they were enough. The swarm was endless. For every beast that fell, 3 more came. The fortress walls began to crack, towers crumbling under the weight. Fire spread, smoke choking the air. Warriors screamed and bled, yet none retreated. They fought as if every strike was their last, their bond stronger than fear. But Daniel saw what the others missed. The swarm did not fight blindly. It moved with purpose, with rhythm. Its attacks were not random. They were following signals, patterns, gaps in the defense. His soldier's mind, trained to read the flow of battle, saw it clearly. "They're hurting us." He shouted to Kayla, "They want us to break the center." Kella's eyes widened, then narrowed. She trusted him without question. Together, they ran to the leader, cutting through beasts and fire. Daniel explained quickly, his words sharp and urgent. The leader's golden eyes burned with understanding. "You see the trap," she said. "Then show us the way out." Daniel's mind raced. He could not match their strength, but strategy, that was his weapon. He pointed to the walls, to the towers, to the fallen stones. "We draw them in. We make them believe they have broken us. Then we collapse the walls on their heads. We don't fight the swarm. We bury it." The leader studied him, then nodded once. "Do it." The warriors followed his plan without hesitation. That was their strength. They trusted the fight. Daniel gave orders, Kayla shouted commands, and together they shifted the battlefield. Warriors pretended to falter, pulling back, letting the swarm pour into the fortress like a flood. The monsters rushed forward, screaming, clawing, hungering for victory. Then the signal was given. The shield maidens struck the foundations, collapsing walls and towers at once. Stone thundered down, crushing beasts in waves. Fire consumed them, smoke choked them. The fortress itself became a weapon. The ground shook as hundreds of the creatures were buried under their own hunger. For a moment, silence fell. The air was heavy with ash and blood. The shield maidens stood among the ruins, their armor cracked, their blades red, but their eyes burning. They had survived the first storm, but Daniel looked to the horizon and felt his heart sink. The swarm was not gone. Far beyond, the sky still writhed with shadows. What they had fought was only the edge, only the first taste of the endless dark. Kayla stepped beside him, her silver eyes fierce but tired. "You saved us," she said quietly. Daniel shook his head. "No, I bought us time. That's all." The leader's voice rose above the silence. "The galaxy will not remember how long we stood. Only that we did not fall. Tonight, we are the wall. And tomorrow, we rise again." The warriors roared, their voices cutting through the night. Daniel gripped his broken staff, his chest rising with fire. He was human, fragile, small. But here, among the fiercest girls in the galaxy, he was something more, and as the horizon burned with the coming of the second wave, he knew the last stand had only begun. The fortress was quiet after the battle, but it was not peace. Smoke curled from broken towers, the air heavy with the stench of blood and fire. The shield maidens walked among the ruins like shadows, tending to the wounded, carrying their dead, sharpening blades for the next fight. No one spoke of victory because they knew the truth: the swarm was not defeated. They had only survived a single night. Daniel sat on a fallen stone, his staff resting across his knees. His hands were blistered, his body bruised, his clothes torn. Every breath hurt, yet his eyes stayed sharp. He had seen war before, but never like this. He had seen men break, but here, even in loss, the shield maidens did not bend. They grieved, but they did not crumble. Kayla approached, her silver eyes catching the dim firelight. She carried a strip of cloth in her hands. Without a word, she wrapped it around Daniel's arm where a claw had torn his skin. Her touch was rough, but her silence was softer than any words. "You should rest," she said at last. Daniel gave a faint smile. "I will when they stop coming." Kayla's lips curved into the smallest shadow of a smile. "Then you will never rest." They sat together for a moment, watching the moons drift across the violet sky. Beyond the walls, the ground was littered with the bodies of the swarm, twisted and broken. Yet the horizon still pulsed with movement, like a storm waiting to break again. The leader with golden eyes gathered the warriors in the great hall. Though its roof was half destroyed, the galaxy map flickered above them. Many stars dimmed, some gone completely. Her voice was low, but strong. "We stood," she said. "We bled, and we live. That is our legacy. But the swarm is endless. They will not stop. To fight them, we must become more than warriors. We must become a fire that spreads, a storm that grows." Her golden gaze turned to Daniel. "And perhaps the galaxy has sent us its strangest weapon." All eyes fell on him. Some with respect, some with doubt, some with quiet fear. Daniel stood slowly, feeling the weight of their stares. "I am only one man," he said, his voice steady. "I don't have your strength, your weapons, your history. But I know one thing: no enemy is truly endless. Somewhere there is a weakness, and together we will find it." The warriors struck their weapons against the floor, a sound like thunder. For the first time, Daniel felt not just tolerated, not just tested, but accepted. That night, as the fires dimmed and the camp settled into uneasy silence, Daniel walked the broken walls. Kayla joined him, her sword across her back, her eyes restless. "You spoke well," she said. "They will follow you." Daniel shook his head. "They follow you." They follow her. I'm just different. That's all. Kayla looked at him for a long time, then said softly, "Sometimes different is what saves us." Before Daniel could answer, a sharp sound broke the air. Not claws, not wings. A pulse. A signal from the far corner of the ruined fortress. A device flickered to life, glowing with red light. The warriors rushed to it, weapons ready. Daniel felt his chest tighten. It was not the drawl this time. The signal was not theirs. It carried another frequency, older, heavier. The map above them shifted, stars rearranging. A new sector lit up, far beyond the Shield Maiden's territory. And there, glowing faintly, was a message in clear human script. Daniel's breath caught. The words were simple, but they shook him to his core. This is the arc of Earth. Survivors remain. To any human across the stars, you are not alone. The hall fell into stunned silence. The warriors looked at Daniel, confusion in their eyes. For them, the message meant nothing. But for him, it meant everything. Humanity was not lost. Somewhere far across the galaxy, his people still fought, still lived. Kella's silver eyes studied his face. "What does it mean?" she asked. Daniel's voice was low, almost trembling. "It means I am not the last." The leader stepped forward, her golden eyes sharp. Then the galaxy has shifted. The swarm may devour worlds, but now, humans rise again. The warriors roared, their voices shaking the ruined hall. Daniel felt his heart blaze with a fire he had not known since Earth. He was not only fighting for survival now, he was fighting for a future. But as the signal faded, the horizon pulsed darker. The swarm stirred again, louder, stronger, hungrier. And now, more factions would rise, some to fight, some to conquer, some to betray. The stars no longer looked distant. They looked alive, watching, waiting. Daniel gripped his staff, his jaw set. The Shield Maidens had given him a place. The galaxy had given him a mission. And now, with Kayla at his side and the memory of Earth burning in his chest, he knew this was only the beginning. The swarm was endless. The war was endless. But so was the will of humankind, and the galaxy was about to learn what that truly meant.